Recording. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for signing in to today's presentation. My name is Kristen Leskowitz. I work in the registration office. Julie's on the call too. She's our registrar.
Julie Shucker, the registrar, and I'm just going to be in the background and support Kristen here and chime in as needed. So go right ahead.
All right, so I'm going to try and cover a couple different topics that I handle on a day-to-day basis in the registration office. But before we do that, let me get to the message from our professional development. There's going to be a survey that you can complete after the session just to give a little feedback, but they appreciate you signing in and listening. So the topics that I'm going to cover today, and I'll try and direct them to how they relate to you as advisors, but I'm going to go over the grad certification process, our auto conferral policy, the two electronic forms that we use in our office, the DegreeWorks discrepancy form, and then our favorite, the sub-waiver form, and how I process those, and then how you can put override notes into DegreeWorks. And again, I'll try and direct those more towards how they relate to you as the advisor. So, okay, to start off with our grad app. We obviously appreciate when students submit the graduation application through BannerWeb. That's kind of the starting point for the grad certification process. Students can do that through BannerWeb. There's instructions on the registration records website on how they can do that. It's very simple and straightforward. We do ask that they submit a grad application for each degree or certificate that they intend on earning in a semester. I've included some screenshots just from DegreeWorks. So if you're looking at one of your advisees' DegreeWorks, you can see if they've submitted an application yet. Once they submit it to us, it comes right to me. I pull all of the applications and I do an initial evaluation as they come in to either clear or deny them for graduation. And you can see the other two screenshots of what DegreeWorks looks like. Based on them being cleared, they get a little green check mark. They're good to go pending final review, or they're denied. And then there's a little bit of follow-up and kind of hunting down on my end that I try to do to see if there's anything that can be done. So if I review their grad application and I see that there's some requirements that are still outstanding, I put up that denied status that you can see on the right. And I reach out to the advisors. I send the grad certification letter, which comes as an electronic form that it's just my way of getting the ball rolling to contact advisors and see if there's anything that can be done to get the student to graduate. I feel like you as advisors have conversations with the students, so you know if there's transcripts that are supposed to be coming in, if they're taking classes elsewhere. Maybe they just applied and they really shouldn't have, and they're graduating another semester from now. So it's really just my way of getting the advisors to look at the audit and confirm or deny if they're going to graduate in that term. So if the student does not submit a graduation application, we put in place, I think it was the spring of 2019, our auto conferral policy, and this is just straight from the college catalog. Basically states that if a student doesn't apply for graduation and our office reviews them and sees that they're on track to meet the requirements in that term, we'll automatically award them the degree or certificate that they're in. We do prefer that they submit the application because it'll gather how they want their name printed on their diploma. If they're participating in the spring commencement, there's other information that we get from that. So it is preferable. There is the option though for the student though that they can contact our office and say, no, I don't want my degree or certificate automatically awarded. But they just need to reach out to us and let us know that.
we notify them, give them a couple months notice before we auto confer?
Yep, I'm going to go over that in this slide.
Okay.
So from my end, I start my process for auto conferral pretty early in the semester. I pull an Argos report, like we were talking about earlier, to kind of give me an idea of who is eligible for a certain semester, and it's just based on credit hours. So degree earning students that have 50 earned credits or more, or certificate earning students who have 26 credit hours or more, are all grouped onto this report, and I go through each one of them and evaluate them on their degree works audit to make sure that they're on track, that all their classes are in progress and their requirements are going to be met, and those students are put into my group for auto conferral at the end of the semester. If I look at students that could potentially graduate and I see, you know, there's a course that's missing, or any kind of adjustments that can be made, I'll reach out to the advisor and just say, hey, you know, this student could graduate in this semester. Is there anything, you know, any waiver, or do you know of any transcripts? You know, there's a bunch of different reasons that they could be missing something, but is there anything that you know or that can be adjusted to make this student eligible? And that's just really my way of trying to alleviate the follow-up at the end of the semester and, you know, get it started early. So any eligible students that I find can graduate in a semester, I start with sending them some different communications. I start with the starfish flag, and that's just a grad app reminder. It tells them, you know, you appear eligible for graduation. Please log into Banner, apply for graduation in this major. And I normally get quite a few grad apps just based on that. If they don't respond to that, a little while after, I'll send an email blast to the same students that haven't responded, letting them know, hey, you appear eligible in this degree or certificate. If you intend on earning it, please apply. Otherwise, as of this date, and I put the grad app deadline in there, we're going to award your degree automatically. If we don't get any response from that, last ditch effort from me is to send a paper letter more towards the end of the semester, but within enough time for them to respond and receive the letter. Just a final, you know, hey, you're eligible for this. If we don't hear from you and you don't apply, we're going to automatically award it. So that's really, you know, just the auto conferral process from my end. And then obviously end of term, when grades are in, we go through with anybody that hasn't responded, and we award those as long as the requirements are still met. Just to kind of give you some numbers from our larger semesters, so fall and spring, since we've put the policy in place, we've had between 15 and 20 additional graduates just based on that. But that's only from, you know, the fall and spring semesters that have the larger groups. So I think that's really made a difference.
Yeah, that's definitely good news that we're, you know, in the past, we used to get some students that would call us and say, you know, can I get a copy of my diploma? Well, we'd look and we'd think, oh, you didn't actually graduate. They think they graduated, but they never submitted the grad application. And in the past, before we had auto conferral, they didn't graduate without that application. So we had issues in the past that we don't have now. And of course, we're graduating more students than before. Like you said, 15 to 20 more, we'll take them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's made a difference.
Yeah.
And just a side note, we don't auto confer for students who aren't eligible. If they're listed in two majors, we don't auto confer if they're not eligible for both. So if a student were to be in the baking and pastry degree and also have the baking certificate, but they're only eligible for the certificate, we wouldn't award it until they're eligible for both. Unless, of course, they did apply for the certificate, and that's fine. They can earn that and continue on in the degree. Okay. All right, so end of term processing for graduation. Once final grades are in, my grad certification begins again for all the students who applied, and we're included in the auto conferral group. Depending on the semester, it'll take me a couple weeks to complete that. And that just basically entails me going through every single person that applied, looking at their degree audit, making sure that now that final grades are in, they've still met their requirements, and either clearing them for graduation or denying them. The groups, the denied group, I'll try and follow up with advisors if I see that there's any kind of adjustment that might be able to be made, following up on any sub waivers. And if requirements are still not met, then Julie will go ahead and deny them for the semester. And those students that were denied then receive a letter and an email within a few weeks letting them know that they were denied. The letter that they receive just states that they didn't meet the requirements for whatever degree or certificate they were in, and kind of some follow-up. If they're continuing on at another school, they can transfer their credits back, and as long as those credits fulfill any requirements they were missing, they can earn the degree with us. Or if they need to continue on in an upcoming semester, or they're taking a break and coming back, it gives them all the details on what they need to do. For the awarded students, if I go through and I see that all the requirements are met after final grades, Julie goes in and awards them, and we move forward with printing the diplomas and getting them out to students. Before COVID had happened, we would allow the students to come in and pick up their diplomas. They would receive a letter, a postcard, and an email letting them know that their diploma was ready, and that was for spring and fall only, and that they could come into our office and get it. But obviously, since now COVID is a thing and we're trying to limit on-campus visits, sorry, that's my dog. Diplomas are just being mailed to the address on file that we have. And then I included a little screenshot from DegreeWorks that once the degree is actually awarded, you can see that in the box at the top that it was awarded. If it was denied, it would say denied.
Kristen and I have a really good process at the end of term. It's kind of like a double check system. So she'll do the preliminary review of the degree evaluations, make sure everything's met, and then refers it off to me for another review. And then I look at, again, making sure everything's met in the DegreeWorks evaluation. I heavily rely on that. And make sure they have sufficient credit hours, look at their GPA, make sure they graduated high school, all of that other stuff that goes into certifying graduation. So we always got 2 sets of eyes on it, which works really well. And we usually get through, like for the December graduates, we were done in, what was it, 2 days? We reviewed over 200 potential graduates, and had those all reviewed in 2 days. So, you know, we get through it pretty quickly. It's the stragglers that take a while with sub waivers, or, you know, we have to petition academic affairs for a catalog change to make them eligible for graduation. And that's why we say 1 to 2 weeks, because there's certain things that take a little longer.
Okay. All right, so the DegreeWorks discrepancy form.
Should we hold all questions till the end?
I can answer your question. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. It was about graduation.
Sure. What was your question?
The second semester, especially for second-year students, would be a good time to remind them to look out for this. And then the question was, if you have students with outstanding credits, how does that work? They have to complete them in the summer for this spring, or can they carry them into the fall?
So they have outstanding requirements that still need to be met after spring?
Well, right. I don't know of any cases offhand, but I did see some last year that they were going to take like 1 class in the summer, so they got the degree conferred. But I was just wondering how much flexibility there is for for that?
Yeah, so after, I don't know if it was like an I grade or that you were you were talking about.
No, it was just, I had some students last year who were actually not my advisee, but I noticed that she was on the graduation list, and she had said she still needed to take a class in the summer. So I just assumed that because she only had one more class to take, it was okay for her to graduate. And I'm wondering what what kind of leeway students actually have. Does it have to be completed in that summer for a spring graduation, or is it something they can defer to the fall?
Yeah, in that case, she would be a summer graduate if she was taking a course in the summer. We allow like 2 to 3 weeks. So for example, after spring graduation, if a student took a course at another college and they have to transfer credits back, and we have to wait for that transcript.
Okay.
So we allow 2 to 3 weeks after certification
Okay, so
yeah.
all right. It's
But
not
any
keeping.
longer than that, they go into the next semester's
Okay.
graduation.
Maybe I'm confusing. Maybe I didn't see her on the graduation list, and that's what.
So
Yeah, that's what it was. I didn't see her on the graduation list. I thought, well, that's strange. She should have graduated. So she must have been a summer. Okay.
Yeah, they would be awarded for whatever term they completed the course in. So if it was summer, then she would have been awarded in August.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on graduation before we move on to the next topic? Okay.
All right. So the DegreeWorks discrepancy form, this is a form that I use, well, it's out there for advisors to use and send to me. If you ever notice that there's an adjustment that needs to be made on an audit for a student, sometimes they have free elective credits that are kind of floating around the audit in other areas that can be used towards their free electives to complete them. Or maybe there's a course that it could fulfill 2 different areas and you want it to fulfill one, but it's in another. This would be the form that you can fill out. It is on the FYI page. I have a screenshot of it right there on the right. It's under our registration and records page, along with all of the other electronic forms that are out there for you. But this form does not take the place of a sub-waiver. Just a side note to advisors. I have received them in the past where advisors think that, oh, I'm going to just submit this discrepancy form. This course should be used, but it's not being counted. And really, it should be a sub-waiver form, and there is an approval process to that. So just to make that differentiation between the two. And once you submit the form, it does come automatically to me, and I review it. I make any changes, or if I'm not able to make the changes, I'll reject it back to you, and you'll get an email just with my notes about, why I didn't process it. So that's a quick form to submit to me if you do ever come across any errors or adjustments that you'd like made. I do receive a lot of phone calls and emails from advisors, hey, can you move this or can you do that? And it just, saves you a phone call or an email. Just submit a form to me. And then I have a paper trail for why I made different changes. Okay. All right, so the next one is everyone's favorite form, the sub-waiver form. This is again listed on the FYI page and in Blackboard for advisors. This form can be used to substitute courses in cases where a course isn't available, the student took a transfer credit elsewhere that could be used to fulfill that requirement. There's a ton of different reasons, I get them, but this is the form to use for that. So it's advisor initiated. Once you fill out the form with the information, you'll select the coordinator for the program that the student is in. And then if the coordinator approves it, they'll select the division chair that oversees the course being substituted for final approval. It'll then come to me and I'll process it. Just a side note, if you are a coordinator for a program and you're initiating it, you'll have to select yourself. So you would initiate it as the advisor and then select yourself as the coordinator and approve it and then send it to a division chair. So for the sub-waiver forms, this is something that you can do ahead of time if you are meeting with a student and you're picking out classes for an upcoming semester and you know that, you know, this class isn't going to be available, but they can take this class. You can submit a sub-waiver form ahead of the student registering for the class, and I can process that. It just ensures that there is a seamless transition. So when the student does register for the class, it's counted in SOT for their financial aid, and there's no little kind of hiccup waiting for this waiver to be processed. It just recognizes that the course is fulfilling the requirement. And I think I wanted to bring up the actual form so I can show you. Let me just stop sharing my screen really quick and bring up that. Okay. So can everyone see Blackboard right now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is in Blackboard. This is also where you can find the forms. I just went under the faculty staff tab where you can have access to it if you don't have access to the FYI page. We have all of our electronic forms here as well for you to access. The degree evaluation discrepancy form is there as well as the sub-waiver form. So I will open it up just to give you an idea of what it looks like when you're submitting it. This is the form, and I just want to bring your attention to the top part here. You might overlook it if you were just, you know, submitting the form quickly, but we do have links up here in this little paragraph about gen ed requirements and liberal arts requirements that, you know, students need to fulfill in order to graduate. So there are links to our gen ed requirements, and it just goes to a web page on the college homepage, and you should have access from there to the chart of all of the current SUNY gen ed approved courses that we offer. There's also a link to the NCCC liberal arts electives, and if I open that up, it's going to, okay. Are you seeing a chart right now?
No, that is just a black box to me.
Okay, let's see. How about now?
There we go.
Okay. So this just opens up a chart. It lists out the minimum requirements for liberal arts courses that are built into our degrees. This is through the state ed department, and there's a link at the bottom to the actual policy from that website. But this is just to reiterate, when you're doing a sub-waiver, you want to be aware that there's a certain number of liberal arts requirements based on the degree. So if you have an AA degree, 3/4 of those credits need to be liberal arts. AS degree, half of them, AAS, 1/3 of them have to be liberal arts courses. I don't know that a lot of advisors are aware of that. I could be wrong, but it's just something that we want you to be aware of when you're submitting a waiver so that we are meeting the state requirements for liberal arts. And I don't know, Julie, do you have anything to add with this chart?
No, just that I think advisors a lot of times are not aware of this, so we enforce that when the sub waivers come through, because we do get a lot of sub waivers, a good amount, and I do try to touch base with division chairs to put common sub waivers through the curriculum committee so that you know, they're approved properly, and then we don't need the sub waivers. So if you can go that route, I would encourage that if there's something you see a trend with, because we do process quite a bit of them. So, but no, you covered it well. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll get out of this. All right, so just to go back to the form, there's also a third link, and that'll just take you to the liberal arts electives that are approved through the college. It's just off of the college catalog. So the first section is pretty obvious. It's just the student's information, the major that the student is in that you're doing a substitution for, and then the required course that you're going to be using another course to substitute, that information there, and the substituted course here. It's important to note that when you're substituting, if the requirement is a 3-credit course and you're substituting a 2-credit course, you have to have equal credit hours. You can't short them on the credits that are required for a program. There's some justifications that you can select from, or you can choose to just make your own comment about why you're submitting the sub-waiver. And then again, at the bottom, to reiterate those gen ed requirements and liberal arts requirements, there are questions. Does the student still meet the mandated gen ed requirements? Do they still meet the minimum liberal arts requirements? And once you click next, it'll ask you to electronically sign it and then select the coordinator that you want to send it to for approval. And the coordinator has the ability to then reject it back to you if they don't agree with it. Otherwise, they can just approve it and send it to the division chair, who also has the ability to reject it. Okay. So I will just show you, are you seeing DegreeWorks right now?
Yes.
Okay. So once we receive the waiver and it's been approved, this is just an example of what the audit will look like once I process it. So you can see right here, hospitality management accounting was substituted for ACC 116. And my little note with the reasoning that was selected on the form. You'll see a time stamp or a date stamp of when I did it. And then I also input a note at the bottom under notes right here. This waiver substitution processed for the course with the program listed. I will make a note of it just for backup. And it's important to note when you submit these, they're only good for the program that the student is currently in. So if the student changes their major, that substitution will come off and it won't apply to whatever program they go into. So a new one will have to be submitted and approved. Okay. All right, so I think I covered everything with that. Did you have any questions about the DegreeWorks substitution?
I do have a question.
Okay.
I think both of you probably remember the earlier this year I had to do a dual substitution where we had I'm trying to remember, it was chemistry in the lab. I think was that 6 credits total or 5?
Okay.
Anyway, I think the total credits were equivalent, but there were 2 courses making up the substitution.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Julie had said in the email that the form wasn't equipped for 2 courses, and I'm wondering if that's something you guys are having made up as a form where you could enter 2 courses. In other words, substituting these 2 courses for those 2 courses.
For one. Yeah, yeah.
Just because we wound up with, like, I don't know, a crazy amount of sub waivers having to be filled out.
I do remember that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that well.
and I guess if I can't get a degree track made, then I'm going to have to continue the substitutions, at least until that's set up.
Yeah, so you're working on a degree track right now?
Well, yeah, I talked to, well, there's some, I put together a plan for it. I haven't put anything into SUNY
Okay.
yet. Yeah.
Okay. Kristen, from what I remember, there are limitations on that electronic form that caused us to request those numerous forms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's nothing we can do in NextGen. That's the software we use for electronic forms, and there's just
There's no way
limitations.
to have the software provider add some.
Did we reach out to the vendor at all to ask that question, Kristen, or we just looked at the functionality ourselves?
Well, I think we could change the form. That would be, I don't see an issue with it, but that would be up to you if we add an additional area where you can put in the two as opposed to asking for two separate waivers, if I'm understanding the question.
Okay, we'll take a look at that and see what we can do then.
Do you want me to try to find that that set of emails?
Do you think you have it, Kristen? Or I know I
I can
probably
look
do.
into it.
If you have it handy, then you could send it to us, but I keep them all, so I just have to.
Okay.
Do you know the student's name at all?
Oh, I don't. There were a couple students. That's why it applies for. It was chemical engineering. People that wanted to do chemical engineering, but the closest track was environmental.
Yeah.
So we had to substitute like a few different classes, and one of them was, or at least one of them was a dual substitution of the lab and.
Right.
Yeah.
I have the email. I know I do because I remember that so well.
Yeah.
I'll look back in my emails after the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
we'll get back in touch with you, but yeah, we'll look into that then and see what we can do to make that a little easier on you in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for bringing that up again.
All right. So the final topic that we're going to talk about is the DegreeWorks override notes that's available to advisors to do through DegreeWorks. So you can submit overrides while you're advising your students in DegreeWorks using the notes function. There's 3 different overrides that you have the ability to submit for. The prereq and coreq overrides, along with your max credit overrides. So advisors can approve override limits, above limits for certain numbers. So for the fall and spring semester, if you're advising and a student needs to go past the normal credit hour, you can approve up to 21 credits. Anything over 21 credits, you're going to need the approval of the division chair. For summer and winter, there are lower credit limits. So if you're going above 12 credits for summer or 6 credits for winter, the division chair's approval is required for those. And I'll show you what the note looks like in DegreeWorks, so you know where to find that. And then once those are input, they automatically come to registration and records every hour, as well as in the overnight process. Just in case you submit it later in the evening when we're not there, we'll get an email first thing in the morning and we can process those. So once we put those in, we do update the note in DegreeWorks to say applied, so that you know, looking back at the audit, that the override is in and the student should be able to register. So let me just bring up DegreeWorks again and show you.
And if you ever have a situation where you can't wait the hour, you know, a student needs a course and there's 1 seat available, you can call the office and we can process that a little more immediate rather than waiting for the hour to pass, just so you know.
Okay, so on DegreeWorks, there's a couple different ways of getting to it. There is the Notes tab, which you'll just click Add Note and you'll have this drop-down menu. The very first 3 are the overrides that you can input, and that's just requires you to put in the subject, the course number, and the term that they're registering for. You can also get here by clicking on this notepad at the top as well, and that will just bring up, are you able to see this box because it's turning orange on me?
No, it's a black box again.
Okay, it'll just bring up a separate box with this drop down menu and, you know, the same options that you can input. So once you input that, you'll just click Save Note, and that'll come to us automatically. And I will show you what it looks like once it's processed. Maybe. Okay, so if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see the note right here. It'll come to us and it'll just say override, and then once we process it, we'll put in this applied note. So if you're advising a student and you put in the override, you can just let them know, hey, check back on your degree works. If you see applied, go ahead and register for it. We're pretty quick with getting those in during business hours when they come into the email. But like Julie said, if you need it immediately, you can just give us a call and say, hey, I put this note in. Can you put this override in for the student? And that should be it with overrides. There was one other thing though that I wanted to show you, and it's not related to the overrides, it's related to graduation. We added a field in this top header, and that will show you any other degrees or certificates that students have been awarded. So that's another area to check just to see, hey, did the student earn anything else while they were here? That will update every semester to show you any other earned degrees. So I think that's it for me. Does anybody have any questions?
Can you show them, quickly go back to DegreeWorks and show them that find feature? Because I think a lot of times advisors aren't aware of how they can find students in DegreeWorks too. And there's different options to look by major. Or... Okay, thanks.
It's not showing, is it?
No.
Oh, geez. Okay, let's see. How about now?
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so you can click find in the top left corner next to where you would put a student's ID number, and you can search by name, you can search by major. You can even put your own ID number in as an advisor, and it'll pull up all of the advisees that are assigned to you. So that's a feature that I don't think a lot of advisors are familiar with. Anything to add to that, Julie?
The attributes too, and whether they applied for graduation or not.
Mm-hmm. So those
the
are
cohorts.
all
Yeah, just show them under each.
Yeah, if you have, you know, I think with the LAHS students, they have different tracks or interests that they can go into. You can search by those. If they're interested in going into medical, the allied health area, distance learning, there's a bunch of different cohorts that you can search by.
Is there some place that shows what those cohort acronyms mean? I've never actually used them, so.
Well, it will show on the top part in the header.
Okay.
If you can see this area, the top right lower corner, it
We're
says
still
cohort.
seeing the
Oh, you're
find.
seeing this? Okay.
Yep.
Let me exit that. Okay. So those will be listed over here in this corner.
Okay.
If they have any cohorts or attributes. But I don't know that it tells you anything other than the abbreviation.
Yeah,
I
I
think
was just
the
curious.
abbreviation. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, like I said, I don't think I've ever used them, but I don't really
Yeah.
understand what they mean.
The only place they're really spelled out is in the Banner production database, which most advisors are not in. So
Right.
there's just limited space on what we can do in order to display them. So they have so many characters, so we're just limited by the system.
Okay. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, so
If you think of anything after, then, you know, we're always here, and call us, email us, either Kristen or I, and we'll get back to you. So,
So
and
this would
I
be a
will
good,
put the survey in the chat for you guys if you want to fill that out when you're done, and just send that to the professional development committee. We appreciate any feedback or things that we could do differently on our end.
or future topics.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you both for all the stuff, all the support you give us as advisors and coordinators.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you very much.
we always appreciate the feedback from you as well. So, thank you all. Have a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
You.